See, what I love about good countdown music is as you fade it out, you almost don't miss it.
Yeah, right.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Jason Nellis Show. I am, shockingly, Jason Nellis, and we're going to try something new. It's a video podcast, which is a new format for me a little bit. Excited to have you all here. Today, I have the honor of interviewing not only a guy I would hope he would also call a friend, but also somebody whose work I've respected for a long time. You may know him as El Jefe Reviews, but to folks who hang out with him on the weekends, he's Jeff Mendez. Jefe, it's good to see you, my friend. How are you?
Good, man. Likewise. Happy to be here, man.
I'm glad. Well, that's we'll see if that holds true. I'm not certain if that's the case. First things first, let's talk a little bit about what we're doing here, which is to really understand the work that you do, what inspired you to start creating content, whether it was, born out of your passion or just simply that you liked headphones and wanted to see if companies would send you headphones. But also I want to talk about the tools of the trade. So let's dive in first with what got you inspired. You've been creating now, I want to say 6 years content. Is that right?
Yeah, 6 years in May for sure. It'll be about 6 years.
And when you and I first met, I think you might have been sub 5,000 subs. I feel like it was real early in your process.
Yeah, it was a while back, man. So that was in it was Unboxed days for you, I believe. So
that's right. Yeah, Unboxed.tv, a sadly gone startup.
Yeah, but yeah, that was a while back, man. But yeah, that was nearly 6 years ago, coming in May. But yeah, just getting started, man. I mean, I was always that dude that was buying gadgets, like, tech and stuff, whatever it might be, battery packs or headphones, or whatever it was, car chargers, like, whatever I wanted to grab. I would like set money aside out of my paychecks and be like, all right, well, this week I'm getting this knickknack or whatever. And I was doing reviews on Amazon and stuff, and it wasn't doing anything for me. I wasn't getting like interaction or anything like that. But that was one of the things that kind of drove me to start doing product reviews over on YouTube. But it was also, just rewinding a little bit, I was also inspired by a lot of PC tech channels. Like, that was one of the biggest things that I was into. Originally, I wanted to have a PC tech channel before I understood what that was actually going to take and require. It wasn't as simple as, hey, now I have a PC tech channel, companies send me product. That's just not how it works. So that was originally what I had wanted to do, but it just didn't work out in that way. Um, but yeah, we started in with just doing really what I had, like whatever gadget I bought that week, I would just do a review about it. And it was really random at first, until I really found that people resonated more with my headphone and earbud reviews more than anything else. So I figured, hey, listen, if they like it and I like doing it, why shouldn't we just go in that direction?
Makes total sense. I think the challenge a lot of folks face early on that I certainly have experienced, and I'm sure you did too, is putting up that first video. It's nerve wracking, and frankly, I don't know about you, I still can't stand seeing myself on camera and hearing the sound of my own voice. What was the experience like for you of like that first video and sort of the reception that you got from that?
Yeah, no, man. It was the first. I actually didn't show my face on camera for the first three videos. So like, I was super, super nervous. But even before that, even just to put the video out, it took a long time. It took a long time for me to get there because I was worried about a lot of things. Mainly because I had seen videos about, people getting harassed online, their families getting harassed online. So I really had to make that decision of, if I'm putting myself out there, I have to try to be as careful as I can to like not dox myself, to not expose my wife at the time and expose my family to any sort of risk. So I had to be as careful as I could. But yeah, that took a few months, man. And finally, I decided, all right, you know what, let's do it. Let's put up the first video. And even then, it was voiceover up until the third video, where at the end of the video, I actually did an outro where I actually showed my face. And then after that, it was kind of like, cat's out of the bag. Let's just go ahead and do this. But yeah, it's a bit weird hearing yourself. I got used to it over time. Seeing myself, I still can't get used to it, even after 6 years. But it's just easier to manage it now.
Well, I think that I find myself staring into my own eyes. I mean, if I'm being candid, I get lost. No, I'm kidding. That everybody who's seen me is like, that's not true. Did you find as time has gone on that you sort of started to maybe mimic the tone of some of the PC channels that you were talking about that were the inspiration for your work? Did you find that like actually developing your own voice was more interesting and sort of copying other people's style was less interesting? Like, how did you get sort of aligned to, the El Jefe conversation, excuse me, the El Jefe video we would see on your channel today?
Yeah, that took a while to really develop, and that was something that I didn't realize how much time that was actually going to take, because I was trying a lot of different things. I was watching a lot of different channels, and I would find myself mimicking other people's styles. Like that happened quite often, and I would watch the video back, and even now when I watched, I'm like, oh yeah, that's kind of like that channel style that I was watching at the time, or the things I would say in the videos would sound like stuff that another PC channel would say, or things like that. Even though I wasn't talking about PCs, so that took me a while, man. And even when I thought I was feeling comfortable, probably like year two, going into year three, where I was like, yeah, I really hit my groove and stuff, and realizing that it really wasn't until much longer after that that I sort of fell into the groove that I'm in now with the way that I speak on camera and letting go and becoming much more comfortable. That really took a long time to sort of develop who this voice is now. Because now, what my goal was to get it to not sound YouTubery outside of the energy level, but to just sound like myself. And that was the where thankfully I had my wife at the time to bounce that off of like, hey, do I sound YouTubery or is this how I sound normally? And she would say, yeah, you're still sounding a little too YouTubery. Or no, this actually sounds like you. Like I would play a video for her. She's like, yeah, this sounds like you would be in conversation. And that's what I was looking for. I wanted it to sound as natural and organic as possible when I speak on camera because I don't want it to come across as um, like I'm putting on a show per se.
What is a YouTubery voice in this instance? Because I can think of a couple different like YouTubers that I would point to, not to mock him by name, but somebody like Austin Evans, where it's like, hey guys, this is Austin, and then
Yeah.
immediately launching into this high energy thing. Like, is that kind of what you were leaning towards, or is it more of the like, just loud, bombastic kind of over the topness that you see a lot of content creators doing?
Yeah, a little bit of both, I would say. Because yeah, even when I go back to see some of those videos from like 2018, early 2019, I was I was overdoing it. Even for myself now, I was overdoing it and I was like, okay, I need to dial this back. Find a way of dialing this back to really just sound like myself. And even though it can come across to some people as being more dull, I'm just being me. And I think that uh while some people may not be into it, other people it really resonates with them. So
Yeah, makes sense. I Who do you follow now? I mean, I assume that whoever you were following 6 years ago may not even be still producing content. But like when you think about some of the guys in your space, maybe I shouldn't use the word guys. Some of the folks in your space
mhm.
that are producing content, who do you sort of look to as being the ones that you either aspire to be similar to, or have grown to a point where you're aiming for that as being your next step function?
Not really sure. I mean, because some of the people that I was watching back then, you're right, aren't producing content anymore in a sense of like what we're doing, or at least in what they were doing back then. Um, but now, I mean, I actually watch channels outside of tech to
Hmm.
get a lot of my ideas, and especially now within the last year and a half, where I've been leaning much heavier on live streaming versus just full on video production. That's led me to watch more successful streamers and figuring out what they do around audience engagement and how to keep them coming in, how to keep them there, to keep them entertained with whatever it is that they're doing. So that's sort of what I'm finding myself doing now, but looking outside of tech. I'm looking at gaming, I'm looking at cooking, I'm looking at lifestyle, I'm looking at vlogs, just to see
Hot
what.
tubs. Hot tubs are the thing, man. Hot tub content,
Yeah, man.
huge.
Dance parties, stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
But just
Yeah,
figuring
silent
things
dance
out.
parties.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, just kind of doing research essentially.
makes sense. Are there any particular streamers that I should check out? Because my love of streaming is really focused on like old retro 16-bit SNES games. So is there anyone in particular that you would say like, hey, if you want to be like a modern regular human being, maybe you should follow these guys instead?
Well, mostly what I've been doing is like if I go on something like Twitch, it isn't anyone in particular. It'll basically it usually will try to push a lot of these bigger streamers like Pokimane and like a lot of different people like that. So I'm looking at what they're doing and it's sort of looking at engagement. What kind of content, what's keeping people there, what are they doing as far as interacting with the viewers directly? Music streams as well is another big one. that I'll watch just to see kind of how are they doing this, like whether it's musicians, whether it's DJs, whatever it might be. Um, there was there was another one that was coming across my mind and it just flicked right out of there. I forgot who it was now, but that's sort of what I've been watching. Some on YouTube as well. Some of them are in tech. There was another one in there was a cooking one that I was watching that was doing pretty good. Their audience engagement was surprising. Um, but yeah, just really looking at what's out there on live. And thankfully with YouTube, when you search up a topic, it's now, it's surfacing shorts, but it's also surfacing live streams, which is nice. And it usually moves them right up to the top, so you can actually have a look at who's doing what right now in live. And it's actually how I came across one of my best favorite content ideas that I've had in a long time was where I saw a person streaming a tier list of their favorite potato chips. So they were ranking their favorite chips like Cheetos and Doritos and Takis, and like they were doing this ranking. And I was like, what if I did that for earbuds? And that has been my most successful content that I had in the past year, was taking that idea but applying it into a different niche, and it actually works surprisingly well.
I mean, that's not surprising to me because you spend so much time talking about these different headphones. Obviously, earbuds, and there's different subcategories you can break it up into, but you must have such strong feelings about particular brands or, over the ear versus earbud kind of a thing. I think I've maybe seen you in person twice without an over the ear headphone on
Right.
at any given time. What would you say is your process? When you think about like, whether it's a live stream or a recorded video, do you start with a script? Do you just start shooting and sort of whatever comes off the top of your head is what you go with? Like, how do you what's the core inception of a video, and then how do you develop it along its way?
Well, it always, one thing I don't do, and this is what I used to do, and I think it was moving backwards, where I used to record a video and then I would try to like figure out the title and the thumbnail and like all that stuff. And I was really, really backwards thinking. And thankfully, somebody really grabbed me and were like, hey, don't do that. You're doing this backwards. So now it starts with the idea. So really, I'm researching. I'm looking at first analytic data. What are people into right now? I'm looking at Google Trends to see what new products are coming out and what's kind of the hot things on the market, or things that even if they're not brand new, but people are still talking about. And that is where I start developing an idea for a video. But first, I want to vet that idea to make sure, does anybody care? Right? I'm looking at what kind of videos, what kind of views are these videos getting on this topic. I'm looking at Google Trends. If that idea passes that muster, like people actually care, then from there, that's where I start coming up with, okay, what's the angle for this video? Because the angle is going to determine, like, is this a listicle? Is it a top five? Or is it 5 reasons not to buy an iPhone? Is it the 3 things I love about a Chevy Camaro? What is the angle for this video? Because that's going to determine the title. And I want to have that same energy in the title, the topic, and that's going to lead me into the script. So from every point that a viewer sees that video, it's going to be satisfied at every point of the way. So the thumbnail's they're going to see it. They're going to see the title. Oh, that's intriguing. They get into the video. I'm going to say first words out of my mouth are going to be me confirming what they just clicked on, that they're in the right place. So it goes through that process of, the idea, does anybody care? And then what's the angle, the title, make the thumbnail, then start writing the script out and, start doing the whole script. And then from there we get into shooting, and the rest is kind of on its way. But that's really how it works from the inception to actually getting out there. And this is for both pre-recorded videos, and I have the same exact process for live streams.
When you say scripting, are you doing bullet points? Are you writing word for word what you're saying? How do you get it on paper so that it's easy for you to produce the video?
It's a little bit of both. I would say kind of a hybrid approach. Um, I do start out with bullet points because I talk about products, so there's a lot of data in there that I want to make sure I hit. So I'll start out with those bullet points. But for usually the first 30 seconds of the video is going to be scripted word for word. I want to make sure that I get people in and can hold them there. And then between the bullet points, like if I'm going to be talking about, let's say just theoretically a set of headphones, um, and I'm going from talking about the connection or the chipset, and now I'm going to move over to like a comfort and actually wearing them. In between those two sections of bullet points, I'm going to write a short blurb in like human speech where I re-engage with the viewer. So that'll be word for word. So it goes from like word for word bullet points that I just kind of riff off, and then actual word for word. So it just kind of goes down this list like that. But the actual writing of it, word for word, I'm actually using speech recognition on my Google Pixel with Google Docs, so that when I read it back, I'm actually reading my own speech patterns. because if I don't write the way that I talk. So when I used to try to write out a whole script and then read it, it didn't sound natural. But once I started using speech recognition to write the scripts, it actually works much better because I don't trip over my own words.
That's really clever. Do you do a lot of editing when you do the text to speech or speech to text? Is it one
Minimal.
of those things? No,
It's
really.
very minimal. It's only like
Wow,
punctuation and fixing specific words, technical terms, things like that. But I would say if it takes me, let's say theoretically, an hour to write the script using speech recognition, it might take me like maybe 5 minutes to do the adjustments on it.
that's incredible. That's a hugely fast turnaround, particularly if you're confident in what you're saying and you know that the text is going to reflect the experience that you want to provide to your fans. That's a hugely useful hack. I love
Yeah.
that.
And then just the fact that speech recognition has gotten advanced to the point where it actually does a really good job, even with some like auto punctuation, just recognizing words has gotten so much better since I started doing this about 2 years ago to now. I mean, it's every generation I've seen it where it's just improving and getting stronger and getting stronger. So I love where it's going, and I've been trying to help creators like lean into that more so that they could use their own natural speech patterns so they sound more human.
I think that makes total sense. I think too, anything that you can do to make somebody more comfortable on camera, particularly as they're starting to figure out what they're doing, right? That's a hugely blocking challenge for a lot of early creators. And
Yeah.
if there's a way to write a script like that that enables them to feel more comfortable with the language, more comfortable with the cadence. Um, did you start in any sort of performance kind of thing when you were younger? Was this the kind of thing that like you coming to YouTube and creating content was sort of a natural extension of something else you'd been doing when you were younger? Or was this fresh from the beginning, something you were trying that was kind of a clean slate?
No, it was totally different, man. Like I didn't have any background in any of that stuff, and that's why I tell people like YouTube. I learned how to do YouTube by watching YouTube videos because I had no video production background, no acting, voiceover, like nothing along those lines at all. Just watched a ton of YouTube, and then every time I had a question, I would look up the question, and usually somebody had already answered it on YouTube. They made a video about it, but that's not to sell short the fact that I've had quite a bit of help from other more experienced creators, asking them questions, reaching out to other people, and learning from them has been crucial in my own, I would say, in my own success as a creator and doing what I do now for work.
And let me tell you, as a guy with a theater degree that was way too expensive, and I never actually used it in any sort of meaningful way, you're doing better than most. Let me just tell you. I think most of my colleagues from undergrad would agree. Let me just say, um, I love that. I really love. There's a creativity in the idea of taking script writing and flipping it, literally flipping the script, so to speak. Do you have other techniques that you use around thumbnail generation or title generation, something there where it's not just simply sort of you know working on the marble until you get to the statue, right? Is there anything else that you've found as sort of a short term or quick turnaround way to solve some of those other larger challenges that a lot of creators experience?
I mean, for myself, it's actually super super basic because I think I'm sort of in a niche on YouTube where it exemplifies like having simpler thumbnails, which is nice. But I've made it as easy as possible on myself. Where a lot of people really lean in on doing like Photoshop and heavy editing on their thumbnails. Totally fine. There's nothing against that. For me, it was too high of a learning curve that I was not willing to put myself through when I needed to get a video out that day. And not saying that that skill isn't worthwhile, and I still do want to learn it when I have the time, but for me, for myself, it's just keeping it simple. And I still make all of my thumbnails on my phone, or tablet because the apps are on both. But I'll shoot the thumbnail photos with my Pixel 7 now. And then I'll take that picture, crop it, brighten it, saturate, whatever I want to do. The apps to do that are free. Then there's another app where you can add text onto the thumbnail if that's what you want to do. And that's it. And I usually, will make 4 to 6 thumbnail variations for each video, but it doesn't take me that much time. It's really about um, speeding up and smoothing out that workflow. Is all I've been doing for the past few years is finding ways to speed up the production process as much as possible, and doing thumbnails, quickly like that with not overly complicating them, has definitely worked in my favor. When it comes to that stuff, I think less is more, and that simple approach has actually worked quite well for me so far.
What would you say is the amount of time that it takes you to build what eventually becomes the thumbnail of choice? Is it an hour, half a day?
Oh no, it wouldn't be that much time. And not saying that people shouldn't spend a ton of time. They really, really should. Just for what I'm doing now, and I'm because I'm so accustomed to doing what I'm doing, probably the thinking of what I want it to look like or what I want it to say, conceptualizing it probably takes anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes, and then the actual mechanics of producing the 6 thumbnails maybe another half an hour to 45 minutes.
Oh wow,
So
so it's a real quick turnaround.
yeah, yeah. Once I have the idea of my head of what I want it to look like, if I want it indoors, outdoors, natural background, my usual background, like whatever I want it to look like, once I have that wrapped in my head and what I want it to say, if I want it to have text or not, once that portion of it is done, then actually executing that is really quick.
Do you find that you need to A/B test thumbnails? So you're putting up you're making 4 to 6 versions of each thumbnail. Do you find you have to swap them to see if performance increases with a different thumbnail or maybe a different title for each video?
I'll do that if necessary. I won't do it just cause. Basically, so assuming that you've already done the research and you know that it's a video topic that people care about. So you know you've got that down because you can have an amazing thumbnail, amazing title, but if it's a topic nobody cares about, it's not going to get clicked on. So if I've already passed that muster, then um, if the video is performing well, in my it's above average, the click-through rate is good, retention is good, views are actually coming in. If it's not broken, I don't fix it. But if I do notice that for whatever reason, if I should have 1,000 views in 3 hours and I notice that I'm at like 500 views in 3 hours, that's the first place I'm going to look and say, okay, what is that click-through rate, what is it looking like? And if it's below, I'll swap it and see what happens. And that's the beauty of having those real-time metrics now, is we can see that stuff. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the day that YouTube finally decides to include AB in their systems, which will be a game changer for all creators.
Yeah, I think that's as I understand it, there is some rumblings that that may actually be coming down the pike.
Yeah,
That,
there's a lot of
that
rumors, and I'm hoping that it's true. I would love to see that.
yeah, well then we're all beginning
Yeah,
turns us all into marketers.
because
Yep.
I've been doing that with on Facebook side. They
Yep.
have that built in where you can run those tests. So that for me has been super helpful.
Does that provide a proxy that you run the test on Facebook and then maybe change things up on YouTube if it works well there?
I've tried that a couple times. I would say half the time it actually has worked. Like what the one that worked better on Facebook and the A/B test has worked better on YouTube. So it can relate because I mean we're putting up thumbnails in front of humans. The difference I think where I'm not 100% sure is because I don't know if that thumbnail on Facebook is being shown to the right people the way it is on YouTube, because we're talking different algorithms at this point. But yeah.
I should probably disclose at this point. My day job is that I work at Meta. I have no interaction with any of these systems. I have no input. I have nothing to offer you here. I'm sorry.
It's fine, but it's all experimentation. Like,
Sure.
if I see the humans are clicking on this other video or this other thumbnail more on Facebook, I'm like, hmm, maybe I should change the other one, and it's worked in my favor. So
That's good to know. Well, let's get down to brass tacks because I think one thing I'm really interested in is the actual rubber meets the road when it comes to the tools that you're using. So you mentioned earlier you're using speech to text on your phone to capture scripts. Do you work in Descript? Do you work in Google Docs? Take me through sort of the different tools as part of your process for not just putting the video together, but actually producing and editing as well.
yeah, sure. So yeah, so I'm using speech recognition on a Pixel, and that's going straight into Google Docs. And the reason I'm using Google Docs is thanks to our mutual friend Michael Fisher. I lost a script. Like it was probably maybe nearly 2 years ago, and I was really upset. It's like 90% done, hours spent on it, and it just poofed. And I was, I took to Twitter. I was super, super just bummed. I was like, I'm gonna go play video games now because I'm really upset. And he chimed in. He was like, "Yeah, you should use Google Docs because one, it auto saves, and it's ubiquitous. Because he, much like Mike himself and myself, we use Android, PC, Mac, iPhones. We have literally all of it. And if I can have this automatically saving and updating across all of my devices, sign me up." And as soon as he said that, like literally that day, I was like, that's it. I'm changing over to this. And ever since then, I've not had any problems. And the beauty of it is it's everywhere. Like it's on my phone, it's on my second phone, it's on my PC, it's on the Mac, it's on my iPad when I actually want to read the script. So that's the way that I'm using. So Google Docs for that has been crucial in helping me get that stuff going.
Do you use a teleprompter? How do you give yourself the script when it's time to go?
So I can show you actually.
Oh yeah,
because
and for those of you listening, tune into the YouTube version so you can actually see this in in living color, so to speak.
That's right. So yeah, so this one, let's see if I can. Did I have it already up? No, I didn't. Okay, so let's do this. So I'm on my iPad, and I'm going to show you literally what it looks like when I'm reading a script on a video. Let's not do that one. That's under embargo. Let's do this one. Okay.
Yeah, don't show me anything that's going to get you in
Exactly.
tremendous trouble with a sponsor.
So basically, here it's an iPad Pro 12.9, and that's literally it. So this sits right under the camera, so it's right here. You just can't see it, but it's right under the lens. So, and as I'm going, I'll pause and I'll scroll up, and then keep reading, and then scroll up, and then keep reading. So literally, that's all I'm doing the whole time is just reading it just like that. And it works well for what I'm doing. So people use teleprompters. I just never invested in one because I already have this. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So, but yeah. I really do recommend people get teleprompters if they're writing scripts. It's a massive game changer for people who want to take this seriously.
Well, but I also think you've brought up a really smart observation, which is if it isn't broke, don't fix it, and by extension, don't use things that cost you. You don't have to go spend a ton of money on quote unquote top of the line stuff, right? Like you're taking photos on your Pixel cameras are great. Why would you spend $1,500 on a high end, or mid range, really, Sony camera with a stock lens just to be able to take photos when you can do it with anything around you?
Yeah. For social media and YouTube usage, it's more than enough.
Absolutely. Okay, so you've got your script. You've done all the work to get it ready for being on camera. Walk me through your equipment. What's the camera you're shooting on right now?
So this is the main camera, same one we're using right now. It's a Sony A6600. It's using a Sigma 16 millimeter lens, so I'm literally like less than 2 feet away from this camera right now. But it does give me, more. It gives me that wider field of view, so it adds nice depth into the room. It's a tiny room, so it works well for that. But it's all hardwired. It's mounted to the desk. It's all wired in, so it can run as a webcam or as my main shooting camera. There's also the top-down angle. I have a second camera up here that shoots top-down for when I'm showing products. The third camera, the top-down and the third camera, those are both Sony A6100s. They're both using, I believe it's I can't remember what lens it is, 30 to 50 Sigma lens, zoom lens. Both of them are using those. And those are just to capture product shots, essentially, from different angles as I'm doing my video shoots now. All of that is running into an Elgato, what is it, HD? I can't remember exactly what it's called.
The HD60.
Well, it's the one that's actually in the it's a PCI card. It's actually built into the PC. Yeah, so all three of those run into that. Recording wise, I'm recording through OBS. So I have that set up both for my live streams and for my videos. So essentially what I tried to create was I wanted parity in audio and video quality for live and for my regular videos. I don't want them to sound or look any different from each other. So whether I'm live, you're getting this quality. When I'm doing a regular video, you're also going to get this quality. So that was the goal, to be able to have it to where I can turn on the cameras, turn on OBS, hit record, or hit live. And either way, it works. It's all set up. I don't have to tear it down. My lights are on remote control, so I can shut it down, turn it on, just keep it as simple as possible. But that's basically what it is as far as the actual recording. And then microphone wise, I think we're using the same mic. It's a Shure MV7.
Love this mic.
Yeah, it's a great mic. I used it USB for a long time. Ended up switching over to XLR. It's running through a Elgato Wave XLR now. So still, I think I finally got it dialed in correctly. Took a little while. But I got that dialed in correctly. And then from there, just into the PC. And then I record on Audacity as backup. So I'll record in OBS. It sounds like this through OBS, but I'll record in Audacity as a backup just in case. So, we love redundancy. So we'll do that. But yeah.
I think we call that the Department of Redundancy department.
Yep.
One question for you, because you brought this up. So I know a lot of content creators early on are intimidated by audio. And I'll be the first to admit, I feel that way. I've done a little bit of audio work in the past. I still don't really understand what the right process is. And in fact, I'm running mine through USB. So if you all prefer Jeff's audio versus mine, that's why. Um, do you find that overcoming those technical challenges and that learning is a major blocker for creators, that like really, when you get into that level of recording and you want to start finessing, that like audio is the hard part? Or is it still that sense that like I need to set up the right video shots, I need to set up the right lighting, like, what I guess my better question is, what's the thing that when you get past that initial scare, what's the thing you have to spend the most time really grinding on to get right, that has the most value for your audience?
Audio for sure. Yeah. Oh, second before that would be your lighting, but yeah, the audio is going to be the one, and that took me a long time to really get it dialed to the level where I felt comfortable with it. And even when I made the change, because I had a different audio interface and I swapped over to this one, there were some growing pains for a couple of weeks there. Like the last video that I put out, I was getting comments on how the audio was clipping. And I was just like, hey, I'm trying to get this dialed in. I had the gain up a little too high and clip guard wasn't on, all kinds of stuff. So, but that to me is a huge thing, because people are willing to accept bad video quality as long as your audio quality is good. So learning that portion of it, and it doesn't have to be super scientific. Like I'm not super expert level when it comes to microphones and audio capture. Leave that to Bandrew at Podcastage. He's the go-to guy as far as that goes. But learning at least the basics of how to get your voice to sound good on video, or good enough on video, is really going to be the key. And it doesn't take a lot. I started at $20 with a $20 lavalier mic, and then I've just built up from there.
Well, I think the other thing too, and again, this is the nerdy theater guy in me talking, but um, articulation and being able to speak clearly is the other thing that I think a lot of creators have challenges with. Um, I've noticed from, if you'll allow me the observation, from an early time, it's very clear as you gain confidence in your early videos, you're speaking, regardless of the quality of the microphone too, but the quality of your speaking gets better over time. In that first year, if you look at your first video versus the end of that year, the confidence at which you speak makes an even larger difference in the quality of the microphone. Um, I assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, you've seen that with other creators, that over time, as they get more confidence and as they get a little bit of a better sense of the right cadence on camera, that's something that really ends up affecting the quality of their audio just as much as the quality of their equipment.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Even just the way that you speak, your voice, your volume level, the things you say, not tripping over your words, your pacing, and that's a lot of practice. Like that's one thing where the videos in themselves are practice. I spent years practicing. Like I was watching channels like Charisma on Command, to really start developing some of those skill sets, but also practice. Like that was one of the things where warming up your voice, running through a video without recording, and then once your voice is fully warmed up, then recording, and that way your voice maintains an even volume level. But the practice, man, when I was driving back and forth to San Francisco, it was like a 90-minute commute each way. I would just sit in my car and I would just rattle off scripts. I would just sit there because I'm stuck in traffic. What else am I going to do, right? So I would just sit there. People looking at me, like I was crazy next to me in my car because I'm sitting there talking to myself. But that really paid off dividends at how quickly my voice developed, when I started doing that. So practicing really helps. Every video is a step towards that. But if you take it a step further and actually practicing your time off, I think that it's just like an athlete. You're building up those muscles to really develop your voice.
I mean, if you or anybody else ever wants to do vocal warm-ups for content creation, man, I'm here. I'm here for it. I got a lot of unnecessary tongue twisters stuck in this sad head of mine. You just
Right?
let me know. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I was doing those for a little while myself when because I was like, well, I'm warming up, but how do people do it when they sing? And then I started watching videos on YouTube, and I was like, wow, that is really interesting. But it actually works. It
Yeah,
actually
absolutely.
works.
Well, I think people forget that voice is a muscle like anything else, right? So you need to practice, as you said, if you're an athlete, you got to practice sprinting, you got to practice, throwing. You also, if you're a performer, you got to practice silly sounds with your voice.
Yeah.
I'll share as an aside, my 2-year-old son has now started copying me because we've been helping him learn to say his S's and his F's correctly. So like if he says stop, I'll go, okay, remember, stop. stop. And he'll go hitting out now. Anytime he doesn't get across what he's trying to get across, he'll be like, Daddy, I want to make a fort. And I go, what did you say? He goes, fort, fort. I'm like, I'm in trouble. Got got a tiny little performer on my hands.
That's adorable, though.
Oh, it's the worst. Oh, he's too damn cute. Um, cool. So you've talked to us a little bit about your camera setup, your mic setup. You got the 3 cameras, which I love. What do you edit in? What's your, you get all the recordings done? Do you do, the full 3 monitor setup in Final Cut or Premiere? Are you going on your iPad and just doing quick cuts and throwing together? Like, what for you let me put it another way. What's the easy process, and what's the I've got a week and I want this video to look stunning process?
So for me, it's on the iPad. I'm using LumaFusion. Fun fact is actually I edited my first video in 4 months last night, and it went shockingly quick. But if before that happened, before I stopped editing videos last summer, I was using a Mac Mini with Final Cut to run multicam editing so that I could record on all 3 cameras at once, throw that all into Final Cut. They have that feature where you can just click like camera 1, camera 2, cameras. It was super, super useful. But last night I was like, you know what? I just need to do this really quickly. I shot the video for the edit, so I just went in and cut everything apart. Um, and now I'm just adding in the spice. Like today I'm shooting the product shots and stuff, and I'm just gonna, sprinkle that in there and it'll be ready to go. But I spent from late 2019 up until I started learning Final Cut last summer, um, a good 3.5, probably 3 years ish using LumaFusion, just because of simplicity. For what I do, I'm not a cinematographer. I'm not doing fancy stuff. I don't need anything but basic cuts and being able to throw different, B-roll shots over it and call it a day. So for what I do, once again, less is more. How can I speed up this workflow? To the point where the last 4 months I haven't edited a video, um, to see how will my channel perform if I went to a live stream only format. And surprisingly, it's actually worked really well. So
I love that.
yeah.
So in terms of hours of production, starting from script writing all the way to when you hit the upload button on YouTube, what would you say this next edited video will be in terms of that timing?
Um, Probably one of the fastest ones because let's say we don't take into account the actual testing of the product. So let's just say just production. Testing's done. I've got my notes. So from inception to actually hitting upload, I would have to say probably about 48 hours ish from beginning to end. But that's not total work time. I would say total work time would be maybe 8 or 9 hours, which is way less than what it used to be for me. So I spend more time testing than anything else. And I don't know what got into me yesterday. I was like a freaking madman. So I got the scripting done super quick and got the video shot. Did my 2 takes and it came out really nice. So I'm good with it. But it was fast.
It sounds to me like it sounds to me like you had a process you were able to lean on really easily.
Yeah.
And from my perspective, again, I'm you and I have known each other for a number of years. I've seen your work over the years. I think one of the things that tells me is that you've done the lion's share of work up until this point, trusting yourself, building the relationship with the camera, building the relationship with editing, to get to a point where you were just like, all right, I got to do a video, and could trust the systems that you had built, to do that. I love that. And I think one of the things I'd hope listeners would enjoy too is knowing, like, what do you do then afterwards, right? So you've launched the video, it's up, it's running, it's a wild success, it's a terrible failure. Let's forget all that because most of that's subjective anyway. Are you tracking hour by hour? Are you waiting until 24 hours have gone before you do work? And what are you using to track? I imagine that you probably have extensions or other systems you're using to look at comparable videos and their performance. So how do you think about sort of the post upload process and when you then move on to the next project?
Yeah. So I mean, post upload, I usually check it after 60 minutes. Check it at 3 hours. Check it at 6 hours. Usually, I check after 60 minutes because I know what my first hour should look like. If ideal conditions, it's a product that people care about. I'm uploading on a good day. Um, then I should have a base rough idea of what I should see view wise in the first 60 minutes. If I'm below that, then I'll start investigating what could be going on. Is the click through rate low? Is something not right? What's going on here? Is there too much competition? Did somebody with a bajillion subscribers make the exact same video and release it at the same time? Stuff like that can happen. So that's where I'll look. If everything looks good at the first hour, I wait until 3 hours, and that's when YouTube will kick in with their analytics. Will kind of round itself out, and they'll say, "Hey, after 3 hours, it's doing 5 out of 10, or 1 out of your last 10 videos, whatever it is," to give you an idea of sort of where it's placing amongst your videos. Um, and if it's doing anything better than a 5, I'm good with it. I'm just going to let it ride. Everything looks good. I'm not going to mess with it. But if I'm noticing that it's not getting the views it should, and it's something that is popular, that's when I'll start kind of debating, could I have done better on the thumbnail? And if the click through rate is good, then I'm like, okay, it's probably the title. Let me look at the titles of it. Sadly, we don't get anything on audience retention until 24, 36 hours later. So we have to wait for that, because sometimes if your title looks good, thumbnail looks good, and you're still not getting views, you're like, what are we going to do, right? What are we going to do? So now we have to wait for that retention to come in, and it could be something that you said in the video that drove people away. Could be that you prattled on too long in the first 15 seconds, and whatever. It could be whatever other reason. But if everything looks good, after 24, 36 hours, I move on to the next video. Unless I have another pressing video that needs to go out, then I'll just start writing that script right away and periodically check the video that I just uploaded.
Love that. I think it's interesting also to hear that, there is a little bit of mystery to the whole process, that you can debug some of it, but ultimately there's also just the question of, sometimes it's timing and sometimes it's just the nature of the beast, that some videos perform exceptionally well and others don't. And from what I'm gathering, your advice to a new creator would just be, just keep going.
Yeah, literally. I mean, and I don't give up on the videos. I'll even if it doesn't perform, especially with what I do, because it's different based on what kind of videos you make. Obviously, a news channel is very different from like what I do. Um, but some of my videos where I'm like, man, this video absolutely bombed. And then I'll come back to it, a month later, and it's got 30,000 views. And then 6 months later, it's 100,000 views. I'm like, what the heck? So it's one of those things where you never know. So don't give up on those videos or think, oh, it didn't perform well, I should delete it. Like, just be patient with it. But more than anything else is you got to keep going, because you're going to keep, especially if you're new, every video that you get under your belt is going to get you closer to whatever your goal is. And at the very worst, you're going to be a better creator. You're going to be better at presenting on camera. You're going to be better at talking to your audience, better at engaging with your viewers. So at the very least, you're going to be building that muscle in the meantime.
Totally. Love that. If you were to go back in time and you could meet Jeff from 6 years ago and give yourself one piece of feedback, one piece of advice about starting from scratch, uh, would it be to just get a great mic? I assume that no, okay.
No,
But
no.
no, what would you tell yourself? What piece of advice would you offer yourself at the beginning of your journey?
Would be to focus on a particular viewer, to really hone in who that person is that I'm making videos for, and have that as like my North Star, your guide. So, who is that person? What are they into? What do they eat for breakfast? What music do they listen to? Like, really dial in on who that person is beyond the surface level male, 30 years old. We're going way deeper than that. Um, Figure out who that person is, and then every video you put out, will he watch this video? And if that answer is no, you need to make a different video. I wish somebody would have told me that. Thankfully, somebody told me that about a year and a half into my career. But if I could go back to the day that I was going to shoot the first video, I would tell, Jeff then, hey, who's this for? And who is every one of your next, 100 videos? Who is that going to be for? And whoever that person is, that's who you need to make those next 100 videos for. I wish I could have told myself that.
All right. I want to wrap up here soon. I want to be respectful of your time. The one thing that is always interesting to me is for folks like you who've done this for years on years on years, I have to imagine that you lose steam. Burnout is a huge problem with creators. And I think in particular, creators who set themselves up early for a consistent cadence of content. The guys who talk about 2 or 3 days a week and they're just pumping out videos left and right. What do you do when you feel burnout? What are ways that creators can push back against that and give themselves a little breathing room?
I've dealt with that on numerous occasions, and most of the time I got it wrong how I dealt with it. But thankfully, I would say in the past year and a half ish, 2021 and moving forward from there, I stopped beating myself up about it. And that was overcoming the guilt of not creating. Because for me, there's always been a goal for what I wanted to do, what I wanted my channel to become, and what I wanted it to do for my life and building a better life for my family. So when I would feel burnout, I would feel guilty because I felt like I was failing my own dream and I was failing the future of my family. And that's a lot of weight to put on yourself. So eventually I got to a point where I realized that I can't feel guilty about not being able to do this when I'm burned out. So I got to the point where if I wasn't feeling it, if I wasn't feeling scripting, if I wasn't feeling shooting, wasn't feeling editing, I would just hit the brakes and I would just step back. You know what? I'm going to go watch a movie. I'm going to go hang with family. I'm going to go play some video games. I'm going to go for a walk. And I'm going to take however long it's going to take. Because there's times where I'm like, all right, listen, I'm just going to take a week off. Or I'm going to take 2 weeks off. I'll be good in 2 weeks. No. I had burnout phases that went anywhere from 30 to 90 days. And I needed it to take as long as it took. And that's one thing I learned is that you only get one of this, right? The channel can wait. And thankfully now my channel's in a position where I can be on cruise control and I can take a step back. So more than anything else is not guilting yourself and taking however much time you need for your mental health. If you need a mental health break, take however long. It sucks. I know it. To be clear, if your channel's getting sponsorship, stuff like that, it's going to affect your business. There's no way around that. But I don't want to drive myself completely insane trying to meet those deadlines. If I have the ability to take a step back, like you have to do it. You have to take care of yourself first.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, I really appreciate the time. We hopefully we'll get to do this again. I'd love to chat with you again in a few months and hear how things are progressing, and particularly as you continue down the road of doing a lot of call it live to tape or just live broadcast stuff. I think that that's a really impressive innovation, and I hope you stick with it because I think that content's really impressive.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate that. I'd love to do it again.
Absolutely. Well, before we go, Jeff, where is the best place for folks to find you if perhaps somebody's listening and they haven't followed you yet?
For me, it's El Jefe Reviews, El Jefe with a J, on YouTube, on Twitter, Instagram, even TikTok. If people are there, that's where you can find me. But if you really want to get hold of me, Twitter is going to be the best place for now.
Awesome. For now, who knows? Yeah, we could all be on Mastodon next week. That's a whole other problem.
Yes.
Cool, man. Well, thank you so much for the time. I really do appreciate it. And we will be back sometime in the future with our next guest, who will be a mystery because I'm still figuring this out. But I do want to give Jeff a big shout out for being willing to be my first victim in this new process. And hopefully this is the first of many times I'll get a chance to chat with you about your work. Thank you again. This has been incredibly helpful, and I've learned a ton. So this has been hopefully great for everybody.
Oh, man, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
All right. And with that, ends our first, I don't know how to close this.